Hey everyone, welcome to Valley Chat. Pastor John Karolus here with Pastor Scott Seidler, and we are continuing our series on the Next Generation Capital Campaign, talking about generosity, talking about what the next phase of ministry is for life here at Shepherd. Pastor Scott, how are you doing this week? And what about generosity has been inspiring you lately?
Doing great. We've got 2 more weeks left in our generosity series toward the capital campaign, end of year gratitude, month of Thanksgiving. How awesome is that? Right now, I am getting ready for house guests to start arriving over the next 2.5 weeks. So I am thankful for the hubbub in my house, but I am also filled with fear and trepidation because it means keeping the house clean with 3 animals, not including myself. That's 4 if you talk to my wife. What about you, John? What's going on in your world?
I uh, I was doing my morning routine today. I get up pretty early, and I um, was making coffee or something, and wandering around the kitchen and realizing that in 6 months from now, I'll be living a very different reality, and the freedom I have over the pace and structure of my mornings is going to be significantly affected by the presence of our little baby. So appreciating the gift that it is to be expecting him, and also the gift that it is to have things the way they are now. So yeah,
Love it.
gratitude has definitely been a big part of just my own thoughts today. We're talking about trusting in God's provision this week in our services, kind of addressing the idea that sometimes there is some fear um, in in our generosity, but also faith in action is a generous faith. And so as you've gone through a number of generosity campaigns and participated in different things, charities, etc., over the years, is there any particular fears that you hear expressed, or maybe you felt yourself when it comes to these types of things?
Yeah, I think for me, the 2 fears that I sense, one is historical, one is more recent. But the one fear is, we have a limited number of resources. We have a limited amount of financial wherewithal. Money does not grow on trees. So, the fear that's associated is robbing, one part of my balance sheet in order to affect change on someone else's balance sheet. And so there's a fear of, will I have enough? And therefore, should I therefore show generosity? I think that's a little bit for all of us who are in kind of the workaday world where we have, income and expense. And then we're, knowing at some point in time down the road, we're going to be retiring and God willing, need to set aside funds and savings for that. It's just how to balance all of those different commitments and the needs in our own life while being asked simultaneously to be generous toward the lives of others. That would be number one. The second piece would be, I think there's a fear of value in this way that this world is really a contested world. We know that the Church of Jesus Christ is struggling, at least in America. Congregations are struggling, and so people ask the question, when I give dollars to an organization, there's immediate benefit and then there's long-term benefit. And if I'm going to give dollars for a long-term benefit, how am I assured that the organization is going to have long-term solvency or kind of existential strength of continuity of service, that kind of thing? And so those are the two concerns or fears that I find myself answering all the time in my leadership here at Shepherd.
Yeah, I think when I was considering this particular message, one fear that kind of I run into myself, or maybe I hear from people is, is my contribution going to make a difference? Is it really helpful? Is there any, like, is does it really do anything? Um, and then there's also kind of what you were saying, like the fear of, is this a wise stewardship of the things that I've been given? Is it
Right.
actually going to be well utilized? Is this, am I going to be held accountable for having made this decision, and then kind of have to wrestle with whether it really was a good idea or not? And in both cases, people are taking finances seriously. I think people all
Right.
truly, in our culture, especially in our church family, desire to be faithful with the resources they have been given.
100%.
And so we do have this opportunity to talk about the balance between faith and fear,
Right.
wisdom and foolishness, but also generosity and you know, frugality, maybe would be another way to put it. And what we hear from the scriptures for this weekend, we talked actually about when we were going through our Timothy series, which is when Paul's encouraging Timothy with the words, "Don't worry about anything, pray about everything, tell God what you need, thank Him for all that He has already done. You'll experience God's peace. It will exceed anything we can grasp or understand, and His
Right.
peace will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." And that same God who takes care of all of our needs will supply everything you need from His glorious riches, which are yours already in Christ. So you get that wonderful like encouragement, and it feels very like positive and very warm and very helpful. But how do you take something that has almost become so familiar and churchy that it loses some of the assurance that is truly there? It's so familiar that we're used to saying God will provide, but then we feel like through my efforts, through my decision making, through what I do, God's given me talents, and now I need to earn the finances that come along with those gifts or passions or opportunities. But how might you sort of couch that encouragement from the Apostle Paul to Timothy in a way that would speak into some of the fears that we experience or interact with?
Yeah, I think there's the idea of incremental generosity. No philanthropist, who's giving away like, the Gates Foundation or something like that. No philanthropist that's giving away millions and tens of millions of dollars started out by giving away millions and tens of millions of dollars. They started giving out in proportion to what God had blessed them with. And so I'm a firm believer in incrementally testing God's generosity back to you, and to build that kind of generosity over the course of many, many years. That's why I think it's just so important for, even 20 and 30 somethings to get cultivating that spirit of generosity. And if in God's wisdom, that provision of like increasing financial resource doesn't materialize, well, that's okay. That's on God, not on you. But that again, just that we give in proportion to what we have. And by the time we get into our 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, what we have and the lifespan that we've got left, given the family we want to bless and the grandkids perhaps as well, those are different kinds of proportional questions we can ask and answer when we're in our 20s and 30s and 40s, and we've got kids, still in college, and we've got a mortgage payment and so many other things. That's just a different game. It's a different time of life. So God is not unaware of our seasons of life. Therefore, let's live a proportional and incremental kind of existence, and that seems to be pretty prudent, pretty wise.
Yeah,
What
the
about you, John? What are you thinking as you go into this weekend and are going to start preaching? Are there any fears in particular that you're going to be touching on?
yeah, I think we wonder, like, am I making the right choice with this gift? Am I making the right choice? What the amount is? Am I making the choice as the designation? Is this the time that I should be more aggressive in generosity or less aggressive? Also, will there be enough at the end of the fill in the blank, the end of the day, the end of the month, the end of the season, the end of the college career for my kids? And so uh, we we can get unhelpfully caught up in the worries that are legitimate and begin to sort of illegitimately make our decisions based off of those things if they exceed the limits of the purpose they're supposed to serve in God's kind of design of all things and design of us. Um, One thing I think that we see in the Bible so often is, we're encouraged to look back at God's faithfulness, look back and ask yourself, am I in a bit better position now than I was 10 years ago?
Right.
If so, how did God create that reality? If not, what are the ways that He's sustaining me even now? And the other part of it is generosity is kind of a spiritual discipline that grows as you practice it. Uh, it's kind of like Craig Rochelle has said many times. We've talked about this, right? The difference between an undisciplined person and a disciplined person isn't just a personality trait; it's practice. And so generosity is a little bit like that as well, where some people are blessed to be inspired to give without any practice at all.
Right.
Others have worked hard at establishing this practice and habit, and it's become a very rewarding thing for them, whether or not, it results in, sometimes the sort of corrupt view of generosity that gets passed around evangelicalism at times. I don't know about if you've ever had an experience like this, but in youth group when I was in middle school, we watched a video on generosity, and it was this testimonial of a guy who felt called to keep ratcheting up generosity. And eventually it was like, well, God told me to sell the car, and he got me a bigger car. And then I got rid of that car, and he blessed me with someone who would drive me around in a limo. And then I gave that up, and he blessed me with an airplane. And then, small airplane turned into a big airplane. And it's like, could be could be true. Yes. Is that the best thing for a middle schooler to hear about generosity? Maybe not. And so I think there are also some suspicions about churches, about charities, about generosity, asking for money. And so I'm not sure if that'll be addressed in the sermon necessarily this weekend, but kind of just that idea of um, God invites us to give to organizations like churches, and there is an element of letting go of the control over those funds in giving. But there also is in our culture this deep appreciation for having a say in what those funds are used for. So
Right.
speaking into that tension and recognizing that God's the giver of all good gifts. And so ultimately, what's come from him will be collected by him. And we just have the opportunity to hold it in our hands for a little bit.
Yeah, Tracy Grindle wrote this morning a devotion, and she was quoting the fruits of the Spirit, and she shared, this truth that perfect love drives out fear.
Hmm.
And so when we think about fear and generosity, or fear over giving and financial loss, the things that I want to advise people to return to is their love for God and God's love for them. Now, that doesn't necessarily turn on the spigot full volume, and we're raining, cash, like, Mr. Moneybanks and Monopoly. But it does get to this idea that it takes our mind off of the dollars, the checks that we're writing, and it puts it in a proper place, which is, how much do I love God? Is it enough to sacrifice a little incrementally for the sake of a greater good that's beyond me, beyond my lifetime? And the second is, in response to God's love for me, as a thank offering, as an expression of gratitude. And so that, I think, is a great antidote. Perfect love drives out fear. Different context, talking about a different, kind of experience in the biblical text. But I think the theme still remains pertinent. And that would be the Bible passage that I'm kind of rooting around with as I prepare for this weekend in worship. We've got a big ask here at Shepherd. We've got $4 million in view for a $6 million physical campus build out here on our Shea campus. We've got projects that are going to be developing next summer over on our Mountain View campus. We have a number of capital expenditures that have been accruing and kind of just, accumulating over the past several years, fixes that we need to put into our campuses. And so I just want to also say to our digital listening group, if you have not considered making a commitment to our Shepherd campus ministry, this campus ministry is what houses our digital campus ministry. And your consideration of that just really, really important. You can find out more on our campaign website. And we're going to be moving into November 23rd with our consecration weekend, where pledges are going to be received in view of a building decision in December. John, how are you faring over on the Mountain View campus with other projects over there? Tell us a little bit about what's happening physically
Yeah,
on that
absolutely.
campus.
Absolutely. So some things happening this last summer and this school year right now are some adjustments to our playground space on the outside of the
Okay.
building, kind of around the back corner. We've got a designated space for our youngest students at the preschool to play in, but we need to put more permanent shade structures there. We're putting in some different surfaces, so it's just a more pleasant play area for them. And so that project is ongoing. We're planning to have that completed before Christmas, which is just going to be great. And then we also are talking about the patio on the front, where everyone that comes to Mountain View walks through in order to make it into the sanctuary, to come into the preschool, to hang out in the lobby, or for any of the events we have on that campus. That front patio space has not been changed fundamentally since Scottsdale Family Church actually finished it out when they bought that property. And when Shepherd bought it, there was some minor adjustments, but nothing significant changed about that particular space. And so a big marquee piece of it that's a little bit sad is there's these 11 palm trees, 40 feet tall or so, and just wonderful. The sad thing is they are dead on the inside and therefore a
Yeah.
liability for falling over, which not only is a risk of property damage, a risk of neighbors' property damage, but a risk of physical
People.
human damage as well. And so we have to take them down. And in taking them down, that gives us the opportunity to say, what's the best use of this space? We
Right.
want to make it usable, licensable for preschool use. So then students can play on both sides of the building. We can have dedicated, great space, put in some turf, put in some new playground equipment, permanent shade structures, picnic tables, a
Love it.
raised planter garden for the kids to learn about agriculture. That's what's happening over on the Mountain View campus in terms of capital development. And we're pumped about it. It's going to continue to allow the experience of that facility to be positive, both for our
Good.
worshipers, the families that hang out after church, and let the kids run around, for the preschool families, for our staff when they hold meetings and conferences and parties out on the patio. It's going to be great.
That's
Um,
lovely.
so we're excited about it.
Good for you.
Yeah. One other quick thought just on the conversation around the idea of generosity, perfect love, casting out fear. I talk to a lot of parents about life, and there's this shared sentiment that they want to give their kids everything they possibly can while
Right.
also protecting them from things as long as possible. And these that's such a beautiful expression of parental love for a child, and yet every parent knows I'm not going to be able to keep them from everything. At a certain
Right.
point, you got to meter in exposure. Also, I can't give them everything because maybe I don't have everything, but also it would ruin them. And so what does loving distribution and care and generosity look like for a parent? And taking that lens, can I think about how God actually is oriented that way toward me as his child and the way that he has provided for and protected me? Um, don't have a conclusive thought on that, but just it seems to resonate with this idea of, man, we've got an opportunity to participate in the generous work God is doing. How might we be able to wrap our minds around that in creative ways?
Yeah. I don't have an answer either. I'm going to have to think on that one. I know that generosity is the experience, not just of teaching. I assimilate information, but that idea that generosity is more caught than taught, and so kids need to grow up seeing in every way, not just writing a check or financial generosity, but time and talent. How do I, as a parent, give parts of my life away for the sake of others with no expectation of getting anything in return? And so, we try to model that, Renee and I, for our kids. And I'm constantly saying, go out, add value to people's lives, figure out how to do it. If it's financial, write a check. If it's time, give it. If it's the talent that you have or the capacity of your soul, then do it. But generosity truly is what makes the world go around. God was generous in creating life and donating to us the breath of life. He was generous in donating and giving us his son, uh, for the forgiveness of our sins. And so this generosity makes the world go around. We therefore should do likewise.
It reminds me of just this super touching story from, I mean, my childhood, because I was there, not because I played any part in the story. But my mom, was able to stay home with us when we were little. And my older sister, Rebecca, one day was asking, like, why don't you go to work? And my mom's like, I don't think you understand how much work this is. And she's like, so do you have a job? And my mom's like, of course, my job is taking care of you. And my sister's like, well, who pays you for that? And she's like, well, I don't get paid for this. It's my, it's my joy. It's my responsibility. This is what I do. And so then my sister went up to her piggy bank and got out a dollar bill and gave it to my mom to
Love that.
acknowledge the work that it is to stay home and raise the kids as a stay-at-home mom. And that dollar bill is still pinned to a bulletin board in the laundry room at our house. And I had seen that a million times growing up, but I never knew why there was this dollar bill pinned to the
That's
bulletin
great.
board. But now, especially as I think back on that and I'm looking at Kaylee and I having a baby, just the significance and impact of that. Yeah, it's just a touching thing. It's just a really cool story, and
That is very cool.
maybe one we all can learn from a little bit. So
Love it.
thanks for the conversation today, Pastor Scott,
Thanks,
and
John.
talking about generosity, talking about the next generation. We would love to chat with anybody about this
Yeah.
project, by the way. If you've got questions, if you've got ideas, if you've got concerns, reach out to the church office. We just want to sit down and share with you the joy that we have around even the nitty-gritty details of this project. And so don't ever feel like there's a question that can't be asked or there's anything we're trying to avoid. We would love to chat with you about it. Call the church office, let us know, and we'll put something on the calendar. Thanks for joining us today. Have a blessed week.
Thank you.